Call this committee of the whole meeting to order. And the first item of business is that we adopt the agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Krog, Councillor Moslin, all those in favor. Actually, we just need, we don't need a second on things. We have minutes from Committee of the Whole, February the 10th. Can I have a motion to adopt the February 10th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes? Councillor Studley, Councillor Zielinski.
Yeah, since we don't need a second.
Could get you on that. We don't only have we break my language. All right.
All in favor?
Thank you. And the first.
All in favor?
Yes. Actually, Rolly has it ready. Is anyone against? The first petition this morning, delegation is Gallery 2 with their quarterly report. So, welcome. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having us today. My name is Tim Van Wyk. I'm Director Curator at Gallery 2, the Grand Forks Art Gallery. Here with me today on behalf of the board is Carrie Collitz, one of our directors. And I'm pleased to present excuse me, our quarterly report for March 2020. So it's been a busy it's been a busy exhibition season. We opened our winter exhibitions February 1st. In the Reed Gallery, I'm very pleased to have Fine Line Check Check, which is by Nelson artist Ian Johnston. This work has been touring nationally, and this is really the only opportunity to see it locally. It's not being shown in Nelson, so we're really proud and pleased to show it here. This is really the result of probably 20 years of investigation on Ian's part, primarily around consumer culture, and it's resulted in this really nuanced video installation piece that starts to consider obsessive compulsive disorder and how its roots in how we live our lives really affect everything. It's about 15 minutes. What I will say is it's worth it if you have the time to spend some time in the gallery. There's a real narrative arc to the piece, and it has a composed soundtrack, which was composed by a Nelson composer as well. It really transforms the space. In the Fog Gallery, we have Observer Observed, which is by Victoria photographer Megan Krause. Megan does these huge, they're about 10 feet long, these panoramas that are taken at popular tourist destinations. This one's Lake Louise. And what she does is she stitches all these people in. So she sets up her camera and shoots a base panorama. And then she just hangs out and takes pictures of people taking pictures. And then individually stitches them into these panoramas. So the result is this, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. There's so many people there. But it really causes you to question what constitutes an authentic experience. And really, most of what our experiences these days are mediated through the screen of our phone or the viewfinder of a camera. It's also really fun. She inserts herself taking a selfie into each picture, so it's quite accessible and approachable. And then in the West Gallery, my layering is all messed up on my PowerPoint slides. So we have Iconic Places, Artistic Traces, works from the permanent collection. And this is really building on utilizing our permanent collection as a community resource and an exhibition resource. We have over 300 works in the collection, and this is a chance to showcase about a dozen of them. So this is really just presenting different landscapes from the super abstract to the very realistic, and some local scenes, some local artists, and some nationally renowned artists, and some of the works that we're really proud to be able to showcase. We've had great uptick from school groups coming into the gallery over the past weeks, particularly in the lead up to spring break. We had the entire Pearly kindergarten class come through 2 weeks ago, and last week was all of the senior art classes from the high school. And one thing I'd like to share about that, I was in there on a Saturday and there was this little girl and her mother. And the girl was literally dragging her mother up the stairs, and I welcomed her to the gallery and asked them why they were there. And she said she'd been there with her class earlier in the week and she just had to come back. So really those are the kind of experiences that that we're trying to build on at the gallery, and it's gratifying to see that happening. Spring is coming, and that means the Boundary Showcase is up. This year, again, we're building on the strength of having a theme last year. Last year it was post-diluvian, and we invited artists to consider the impacts of the floods. This year we're calling it Gimme Shelter. So we're asking for work that considers the role that shelter and the lack thereof plays in our lives and our community. And how do we shelter our neighbors, our community, and ourselves adequately and equitably? So as with previous years, this is not a juried exhibition. You're welcome to bring any work that you've done in the past year, and it's really meant as a showcase of the community. But the call for submission, or the theme, is meant as a way of focusing the work. And last year we had a really positive response to having the theme, and looking forward to it this year. Again, the drop-off dates are April 8th and 9th, and then the exhibition runs the last week of April and the first week of May. Concurrent with that, we're also running our fundraiser with Habitat for Humanity, the Take a Seat fundraiser. Terry is doing another chair, and I think it's going to be fabulous. Along with 25 other, I believe there's 25 other chairs that have gone out. And then during the showcase as well will be the final is our youth presentation series, and that's our collaboration with the Boundary Music Educators. There was one on Saturday, if you caught it. And then the culmination of the series is during the Boundary Showcase. Additionally, we're partnering with the Granby the Riverside Artists Collective to do a show in the Art Rental Gallery around Mental Health Week. So really it's going to be another massive community celebration of art and a real kickoff to the summer season at Gallery 2. Moving on to our fiscal update, Gallery 2 was named in the will of Don Reed, who passed away last spring. We're very gratified and thankful that Mr. Reed saw fit to leave money to the gallery in it, and we were named for $30,000, which came through in early December. And then when we came back from Christmas, there was another check with an additional bequest for $150,000, which was a very pleasant surprise to come back to, I must say. This bequest is for capital projects and gallery upgrades, and the bequest right now has been internally restricted by the board for use for leveraging matching capital grants funds. This is really a once-in-a-generation opportunity for an institution like ours to really build on this generosity and leverage what we can do to improve the facility and make it work for us and the community for the next foreseeable future. So we are actively working, some of those funds will be used in 2020 for our lobby upgrades project, which we've secured some BC Gaming Capital funds from in conjunction with our 2019 Phoenix Foundation grant. Primarily carpets. They were done in 1982, I think, and need replacement. And then moving forward, we're working with partners at the city and the regional district to figure out the best way to leverage these funds. So this year, we're looking to bundle some planned HVAC automation updates with other building life cycle and program requirements. And I guess the biggest point with this is, as we realize and move forward with larger projects, there's definitely some functional design issues in our building, and collection storage needs addressing, but really all these projects are going to require a more in-depth planning process. We're moving from being able to spot and identify projects to needing a more holistic approach. But it's very exciting times. And once again, the bequest is a great way of recognizing commitment to arts and culture, and we're really grateful for Mr. Reed's foresight with that and commitment to the community. Moving on to our fiscal update. This is to the end of January 2020. I'll draw your attention to mainly our total revenue. We're down about $5,000 year to date. That's the bottom right corner on the left-hand side. And our expenses are over by about $5,000. So our net revenue, we're down almost $10,000 on the year. This is primarily due to our fundraising events revenues were off what was expected, and our fundraising event costs have been greater than expected. This is partly because we're in a transitional year with how we run our fundraising events, and we're adjusting those moving forward into budget 2020-2021. Other than that, I'm particularly pleased with the facility operations expenses. We're basically bang on budget, and that is something that's notoriously difficult to hit in terms of energy usage and those kinds of things. And then also included in your package is our capital projects revenues and expenses. These are things that are not included in the operating budget, but are included in the yearly expenses, so they are funded but not budgeted for. The top one is our signage, wayfinding, and exterior lighting project, which is funded from a BC Gaming Capital project and from Gallery 2 restricted funds from 2018. The second is our Phoenix Foundation grant from this year, which we've leveraged for BC Gaming Capital grants. And then expenses for a bursary that was introduced, and then the Don Reed bequest at the bottom. So, all in all, exciting times at Gallery 2, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Impressive, creative, wow. Staying in touch with your community, I'm impressed. And opening for questions, comments?
Yeah, Angela Nichols. I was just wondering, first of all, the Is Art presentation that you guys did was really wonderful to see. But I do have a question regarding the other upcoming events, such as the showcase, which I understand is usually advertised in the Gazette. But the other items that you mentioned, and I don't remember them all, there was the Hope for Humanity, the Take a Seat, and the one with the Riverside Association, the artist group, and those kind of things. Would these different things that are coming up, would you guys have that information posted anywhere that people from the public can access and maybe participate in them?
That's a great question, and the short answer is yes. We publicize upcoming events and calls for submissions in our program guide, which comes out to members in conjunction with our exhibitions. It's also posted on our website, and that's really the go-to place for all of your scheduling questions and scheduling information. So keep checking out the Gallery 2 website. Yeah, and the program guide. It's also around, and you can stop by the gallery and pick one up.
Okay, Tim and Carrie, things are going great. I'm so impressed that the way you've melded it with community issues. I think art and community are so connected. Thank you. No. Next quarterly report is the museum, and welcome. We've got a large contingent.
Thanks for having us. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor, for having us. Okay, this is the quarterly report. February, we had quite a lovely, successful event for the Family Heritage Day, celebrating culture and heritage in our community. This was funded by the BC government, and it gave us an opportunity to offer a lot of fun for families in the community. We had over 160 visitors, and We had about 27 volunteers come out and assist us with the tours, live entertainment, and trade demonstrations. It was a lot of fun. We had games and all kinds of fun activities for the family. We offered free refreshments, baked goods, crafts, door prizes, and game prizes as well. So it was a lot of fun bringing the community together, and yeah, it's very enjoyable. Our budget here, I'm gonna have a hard time seeing that. So. Yeah, this is the budget, what it actually came in at the end of 2019. Oops, actually, I guess if I hit this button, there we go, that's how. Okay, so we received the final $15,000 grant funds from the regional district. That was upon our 75% completion of the 60 by 40 project. We received $13,311.50 in donations for that project as well. And the expenses incurred just in 2019 were $71,346.50, and that's for the contractors and materials for the project. Biggest operating expenses, of course, are wages, and this is just for part-time employees. There were many gaps in employees last year due to unexpected changeovers and leaves of absence. We had 3 summer students, therefore the grant funds of $10,019, they actually do offset this expense, so the wages were, we really only spent the $73,000 for that. Building and grounds maintenance was another huge expense on the budget. There was a lot of repairs and damage. We had vandalism up there, and stairs needed to be replaced. The woodworkers did the labor for that. They volunteered their time, but we had to purchase all the materials, and there were various electrical work projects that needed to be done, and yeah, that's basically leading up to that. Utilities were over budget at $7,704, even with our solar panels. We did additionally install some window film to help reduce some of the heat loss in the wintertime. And yet overall, we did have a deficit of $24,000 last year. That is basically comes from, we had the retained earnings for the 60 by 40 project in savings, so that money is basically where that came from. And this is the regional district. We're a huge supporter of this 60 by 40 building project. And the total expenses as of December 31st on this project were $100,926.76. The total revenue overall was $74,776, and the Boundary Museum Society put in their $60,000 for that. So currently we have $33,849 left. We're nearing completion. The painting has been completed. We're just waiting to basically do the finishing on the electrical now. And the Grand Forks Volunteer Firefighters, they have donated $3,000 towards the lighting fixtures, up to $3,000. So, and any remaining funds we're going to put towards exhibit design and execution. We'd like to have a big mural on the far west wall there with a big heritage, something representing the heritage of Grand Forks. The operating budget for 2020 so far, this is only up till the end of January because I didn't have the totals till the end of February yet. $25,000 there in grants that came from the $15,000 from the regional district, but then another 10 was the BC Rural Dividend Fund. That is, I'll explain what we're using that for shortly. Oops. Yeah, well, here we go. That's the strategic planning project. We do have the project is going to cost $15,000, and that's $10,000 comes from that was given last year in 2019. Sorry. So we're going to be doing more fundraising efforts throughout the community and some membership events to try and make up for some of the difference in our budget there. Further grant applications have been put in place for summer employment as usual as well. And leasehold improvements for the 60 by 40, anything more that's being done on that comes from our savings from previous year. One of the big things we're really excited about is our partnership with the Grand Forks Volunteer Firefighters Association. They are going to be moving in their antique fire trucks into this new building very shortly. And they are working in conjunction with us to help produce a pretty exciting exhibit for the community with lots of their own artifacts from their own personal collection, as well as some that we have already. And we're planning a really fun open house event. It's actually not going to be on April 25th. Since our last meeting, we changed it to May 30th to give us a little more time to put better effort into the exhibit and all of that. So this is the next big thing that we're currently involved in right now, and it's the strategic planning project that we're using this for the Rural Dividend Grant, the $10,000. We are hoping to build more capacity and community resilience, thinking more strongly about how we are supporting our community, how we're addressing the needs of our community through our programming, our exhibits, how we're using our collections in the best way we can, marketing, funding, how we're using our facilities. So we're looking at the big picture, and we have 4 team workshops that are led by Jim Cullen from Calgary, Alberta. He's a sought-after consultant with lots of experience, over 30 years experience in the museum sector. So we're really grateful to have him. Our planning team consists of 13 cross-generational participants with members from various stakeholder community groups and professionals, in addition to board members and staff. And we have Kathy Korlick serving as part of this planning team, and we're really grateful to have her contributions to this. Because one of the most important parts of this whole process is we are, this month, we are actually involved in interviewing different stakeholders in the community to get, and our membership, just to get a lot of feedback to see what their needs are, and that we are, serving the needs of the broader whole community in what we're doing there. So this new vision and mission statement will address the needs of our stakeholders and give us better direction in making choices for how we move forward in the programs we support and the projects we do. So this is a pretty exciting time for us. And okay, the accountant review of financial statements. We're currently involved in doing this with the local accountants. This is a $4,500 project. It's unexpected expenses, of course. That does put our budget over by $4,350 in that area. The increase, 2% from the city, will help somewhat, but it doesn't fully cover the extra strain on our budget. So we're just saying that, yep, of course, it's beneficial to have our overall budget increased by $4,500 with, and then also have that 2% increase to cover inflation costs. So far, the accountant's pleased with our financial record keeping. There are a couple changes that we are making in our approach, just to make things tightened up a little bit there. So far, everything is looking really well. And we'll be presenting the results of this to our membership at the AGM on May 16th. And the Boundary Museum Society is welcoming some new board members in 2020. Our AGM is scheduled for May 16th. We're looking to fill a few positions. We are welcoming, interest in anyone who's interested in serving on the board. We would like to attract some professionals from the community. If you know of anyone in experience in any of these areas, it would be greatly appreciated and welcome to be a part of the Boundary Museum Society. And I think Oh, yeah, just a little bit other news. We did have our volunteer luncheon in December, and we have 2 weddings booked this year. And we are, of course, planning more fundraising, AGM coming up, and the strategic plan. Looking forward to all that. So there you go. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. That building sounds exciting, and can you tell me a bit more about what's going inside it? There's the fire trucks, but do you have other displays that you're...
Well, there's 3 antique fire trucks and a steam pumper as well going in there, and then there's some of the equipment from Gyro Park.
Oh, great.
So there's 2 pieces coming from there that have just been moved into the woodworkers shop. They're going to do restoration. The volunteer firefighters are actually going to help with that as well, so that's all volunteer time that's being done on that. And we have the 40 by 40 building that we're actually redoing how we're showcasing stuff, and so there's a lot of buggies and a stagecoach and that. We have quite a lot of room. So we now have a 100 by 40 building, so there's a lot more room to showcase all this, so it's going to be quite revamped.
That's great how you're connected to those groups too. Do the woodworkers sit on your board?
We do have, we have 2 of them on our board.
They did a great job on the stairs. That was a tricky job. But
for sure.
Yeah.
We're really grateful for them.
Questions, council, comments? And from the gallery.
I have a question. Frank Soroka.
Yeah.
How is it that you guys need another 2% increase in your budget? Okay, in the private sector, we're all taking pay cuts, and yet there seems to be a trend where the last group that was in here is looking for more money, and you're looking for more money. This actually is going to go on to a later discussion, but your funding, when you go and do your fundraisers, you're noticing a decrease in your fundraiser revenues because people don't have the money to give you. So what I'm saying is maybe we should look at staying within our budget rather than come.
Well, that's fine, that's okay if we could stay in the budget, but lots of times there's unexpected things. This year we had a lot of vandalism, and like doors were broken and stuff. You have to fix all that in order to, so that was one of our downfalls this year. And there's always seems to be something that we have a very limited budget, and we have to work within it. But if you've got unexpected expenses, there's just nothing. And we don't get normally the 2%, we just started getting it. So, and it's peanuts compared to, that's all I've got to say.
My question wasn't directed directly at you. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
That's okay.
I am just feeling very frustrated with everybody comes in. You know, the last group want more money, your group wants more money, they want more money. We don't have it.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
I was just going to say, Juliana Chadwick, I was just going to say, does your insurance not cover for vandalism and broken doors and things like that?
Up to a point, but we, as all insurances, it has to be more than, and ours was just borderline,
Okay.
so you don't get money from that, yes.
Councilor Mazza.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I guess my question is about the stakeholder interview questions survey that Councilor Corlett passed on to me. It's quite a lengthy survey. I'm working my way through it, honest. How many of those survey forms did you hand out?
We have about 30 different stakeholders, and then also our membership that we are putting that out to. So there's our team of 13. We've divvied up all the different stakeholders, and everyone is this month. That is what they're doing between now and our next meeting in April. they are engaging and getting that information back, and we're starting to get some in from, we've had information in from the school district and some local teachers already, and the Rotary has participated.
And this is part of a grant, have I got that right? A grant
Yeah.
process?
Yep.
So you have hired someone to
Yes.
crunch the surveys? Because they are...
Yeah, so what we're doing as staff has to compile all these results that we put forward, and then the consultant takes it and we use it as our next workshop. So we look at the results, and then he has a process that he takes us through so that we can make sure there will be overlaps and a lot of information that we get, right, from, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to those results, and I'll try to get it done.
Thank you. We appreciate all of the input that people are able to give
all of
us.
the councillors
Thank
have
you.
them to fill out. All right, thank you very much, ladies.
Okay.
Good work. Being my neighbors up there, I'm always proud of you.
Thanks so much.
Okay, the next group is the Grand Forks Senior Society, and I'm not sure who your spokesperson is, but I know you have more than one member here.
Yes. Ian Taylor,
Ralph?
Ian Taylor, Ralph White, Vice President, President, Juliana Chadwick, our Secretary, and Joyce Bourgeois, our Treasurer. As most of the councillors know, we lost our building in the flood. For the last 2 years, we've been all over the valley. Last August, we moved into we thought it could be our home, but we just found it so hard to pay bills. We have no income coming in. So we'd like to get some help from the city to get us through the rentals, and we have other locations. At one time, the city did offer us the library building, the basement. There's another building in town that we're looking at, but right now we're in the old Hardyview Lodge. And our main thing is we're looking at seeing if we can get some help with the rental on this building at 7380 78th Avenue.
Okay. Yeah, I have read what you've got there. I'm going to open this up then to council. Is there anything further you want to say on this before we open to questions?
I think what we're looking for, we really, we're in a position right now, we're in a building, and it's an ideal building for the senior society. It's tailor-made for the senior society, actually, but we just cannot afford it. We cannot afford the rent that we would have to pay to do that. The building itself is not completed, so we can't lease it to make money so that we can pay our bills. Our finances are a matter of public record. We're down to $9,000 in our coffers, and we have asked the city before to assist in kind because you don't offer a grant in aid anymore. And we do have things in for grants, but we've not been awarded anything except from the regional district, which we bought chairs with. This is just but one option. The library space was another option that you had given us several years ago. We did do a business plan on that, and when I called 2 months later with the then CAO, I was denied an interview with yourselves to see where that was. Well, that didn't go anywhere. So is that still viable? There's the Salonic Hall just down the street, which is also available, but it needs to be investigated. I guess through a lawyer, which we don't have the funds for. Ralph White can talk on that more because he's with the Seniors Advisory Council of BC, so he can tell you that they asked us to look into that. But we don't have the finances to do these things. So we need some kind of assistance from the city, whether it's in investigating these options for us or so that we can get, there's even the building into the park. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to tear the building down? Is it going to be rebuilt and offered to the seniors again? The city of Grand Forks is in a situation where you will lose the Grand Forks Senior Society. You will lose it because we just cannot do it.
Clearly, you've been a resource that we've made good use of over the last several years. You've been a quasi-community center at times and being the only large rental place available. I know the nature of what you're trying to put back together here. You want to be able to earn revenue, you want to be able to run your own events, but also make some money on the side.
For seniors events, of course. This is a non-profit organization, so none of this money, this is all going back into the community
and
seniors.
it always has gone back into providing better service.
Yes,
so, I don't have a solution for you at the table, but I'm certainly willing to open it up to some discussion here in terms of what direction we go.
What I would like to see come out of this meeting is a recommendation that staff, that council directs staff to investigate the options for finding a senior center or assisting the seniors with finding a permanent center for the senior society and report back to said senior society within, say, a 2 or 3 month time frame, just so we know where we're at and what we're dealing with.
That's a very clear request. Thank you. Okay, let's open this up a bit. Council, comments? Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So let's start out with the building. If staff can tell us where the building is, whether it's going to be demolished, insurance, all that other stuff.
Oh, that building
the
there.
existing building, yeah.
Can we update on that? Would that be of any use? Any word on what we're doing with that building? Daniel?
So Mr. Reed was in charge with the insurance claims. I think Ms. Rhodes can update maybe on the insurance. As far as I understand it, because it is in the floodplain area, either we would have to build it up to the new standards from the insurance side potentially. Again, I'm not too involved. As far as I understood it always, the idea was to scrap the building.
That's the way I felt we had left it as well.
It was going to be demolished.
It was going to be demolished. If we couldn't use that frame, just the block frame for anything, that it would be demolished.
Okay. And part of the insurance money, I think the idea was to put it towards a potential community center to make a business case there, and then have groups such as the Senior Society be able to use the community center as well for their activities.
So the seniors have been involved with the planning of the community center. I am fully aware of that.
I've been to several of those meetings, but I've yet to see something specific to the seniors. And what we're looking for, of course, is a permanent center too. So not just in a building or just an office where we hold our events and then leave. We've got several items that we would have to store, and it would have to become a permanent fixture. So an annex to the community center or something like that. I mean, I know I'm asking a lot, but you understand that the seniors need a building, need a permanent home for all the seniors to come in. It has to be designed so that it's, no stairs and all.
We want to harness the energy that you're bringing to the community. We've got to look at how we can do that.
I understand.
Can I just ask, I'm a little concerned about the fact that you had come forward with a plan on the basement of the library and that it didn't go anywhere, but I'd certainly be interested in any further comment on that.
Well, and I'm sorry to take it away from the president, but our members were not excited about the basement space. They really weren't, because of parking, and there were a couple of issues. But I believe that we can work with anything. And the library space, although, you know, it doesn't have easy access down, we need a ramp or a small lift or something like that to get us down there and some of our members up. We could work with that, you know, certainly.
So I put off Councillor Zelinski and then Councillor Crog.
How much was the insurance?
Rejected one.
On the building? How much
Oh,
came back?
I couldn't tell.
How much do we expect back? Round figures, any idea? Juliet?
They're still finalizing.
We can't hear you.
Microphone, please.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we're still finalizing our claim with the insurance company and nothing has been settled yet, so it might not be an opportune moment to disclose that amount.
In that it wouldn't be accurate enough to be putting it out in public.
Well, what order of magnitude, is it $200 or $2,000? Is it?
It would be in the order of a couple of $100,000.
Okay, and the other thing to remember there is that council, I'm assuming, had decided that funds from that would be channeled towards the community center. Whether you've done that formally or not, I don't recall it either.
Just because Kevin might have this number in his mind. A new elevator, what does a new elevator cost?
Well, actually, I do have that number in my mind. A brand new elevator installation is probably going to be between $120,000 and $150,000.
Yes.
Wow.
In any reasonable building.
In a reasonable 2- or 3-story building.
Okay. What about, may I ask, do you have an idea what a ramp would cost? If you
Not
were
a
to
clue.
ramp that down?
Not a clue. I've been looking
But-
at elevators for a
Okay, but I
very
think it would be a
specific
lot
reason.
less than the lift.
But there was a ramp design done under Mr. Kumar's mentorship.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bruce there can speak to that.
Yeah, excuse me,
Mr. Bruce.
Mr. Mayor, we do have some preliminary cost estimates that were done, I believe, in 2012, maybe 2013, to essentially fix up the library basement, including the ramp, is in the magnitude of $200,000.
Okay, thank you. I know it needs a kitchen down there as well, sir. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to mention the fact that the reason the women do not like the library, who wants to go into a basement with nothing but cement walls, no windows, and how can you enjoy yourself? You almost feel like you're in a cell. I mean, you know, the seniors, as far as I'm concerned, deserve a little bit better, a view. People can look outside, not look at concrete walls, not duck their heads on a 7-foot ceiling. Minimum is 8 foot. Why are we trying to pass something that's only 7 feet high?
Gotcha.
And nothing but concrete?
Thank you very much. And Councillor Krog next, and then we'll go to the gallery again. Go ahead.
Yeah, question through you to the delegation. Someone mentioned, rent for the building that you're in right now, that Veronica Lodge. Okay, but then somebody said, but the building wasn't finished, so that limits our ability to rent it out to make income. So, if it was rented, how much is it going to cost to get the building to what you feel that you could make money off of?
Well, I can't comment, I don't think any of us can comment on what it would take to fix the Veronica Lodge itself for our space, but we know what we need. We need the kitchen done. We need, you know, because it has to pass certain inspections as well. It's very cold there, so, and I have to tell you, it's an ideal space. It's a lodge for seniors, so it's tailor-made with the big washrooms and no stairs and things like that, but there are certain things that are required to make it functional before we can allow members of the public in there to hold weddings or celebrations of life or anything like that. And I don't know how much that would cost to do that. We're dependent on a landlord for that.
I have a number of hands here. To go to Nigel James and then back to the table here. Nigel.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. My name is Nigel James and I'm a resident of Grand Forks. I'd like to, if I may, Your Worship, remind you of a private conversation we had about 5 or 6 years ago. It's nothing contentious, but you said to me, Grand Forks, the only growth industry in Grand Forks are the seniors. And all I feel that the seniors, being the growth industry, we must concentrate on that. Thank you.
And I still agree with that. There's money in seniors. And we're back to the table, and was that Zelinski, Krog?
No, I did.
Yeah.
Councillor.
Thank you. So it sounds like we get back to how do we make the present position or present place viable. So no costing on how to get the kitchen and the space that you need
I
back up
believe
and running?
the owner is in the audience if you wanted to speak on that.
So around just the space that the seniors are using, including the kitchen, I know that's going to be the big dollar value, but any idea on cost?
To staff. And name first.
My name's Ron Walker. I'm the owner of Veronica Lodge. And the kitchen, to get it up to a capacity of, so that venues can be held, would be minimal. To get it back to a commercial kitchen would be some more. I have a contractor that will be giving me quotes on to get it back up to a commercial kitchen. I should know that within 2 or 3 weeks. But in order to get the seniors so they can have venues, it would be under $5,000.
Okay, I just want to remind everyone that at this point in time, the request was that we ask our staff to look into this, and I think that's still what I see on the table, is that rather than trying to solve the problem, we've opened it up a little bit to look at some of the things out there. But in fact, we need some work done on this if we're committed to making use of the energy that we're getting from the seniors group. I think we do need to rely on our staff to look into it and come back to us with a report.
So the question is, what are we asking the staff to look into?
Yes, and I think we've been exploring that. I think location is probably the biggest part of it. Am I wrong?
Several options there.
Yeah, it sounded like communities have been going around in circles on viable venues. And it sounds like they found one, and now we just have to try and make this one profitable, or at least use it.
Well, and that's what I'm not so sure we've narrowed it down that much. But Ralph had his hand up there. If we could go to Ralph.
We have another semi-solution. Our organization went to a lawyer to check on the viability of the Slavonic Seniors building, and the result from that was, because they have lost the registration, the building is cheated to the provincial government. It now belongs to the government, apparently. So maybe the city, having more resources, could follow up and see what the availability is of us obtaining this building or securing some use of it. It's a bit in limbo right now, and the building's just sitting there. The only people that use it are a group renting the basement. The rest of the building is sitting empty.
And I'm quite aware of that building. I know it's in need of some repair.
It does need repair.
I'm disappointed to hear that it's gone into government hands. It was the Slavonic group, and I assume that they have aged out of our community here. Council, this is in the realm of asking our staff again to look at these options. Can we make that a motion maybe to move it forward? Councillor Zelinski makes the motion, Councillor Crock. And discussion on that. So have we clarified enough what we want to ask here? I'm thinking at this point, we're not questioning anything at this point except where they would do the things they want to do. Councillor.
Could we maybe throw in the viability of like a fee-for-service? Because I kind of get the feeling that they might fit into what our fee-for-services usually cover.
Well, they do offer services to us, but I'm not sure you mean to give them some regular revenue?
Exactly, and my theory would just be until they do find a permanent home, like let's say the community center does come to fruition, then maybe that's when we would phase out that fee-for-service, but until then, just so they have some means to stay in some building, whether they use that fee-for-service for rent or however they deem fit.
Okay, again, I certainly would throw that back to a staff report on it. Kevin?
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify the resolution, there is a motion to refer to staff, but can we get the specifics or the scope of the request for staff?
Solve the problem.
Investigate viable options.
Defining the problem, I think that we're pretty much down to specifically what buildings would be available. Would that
And the
get specific?
options.
So that leaves it wide open to a number of buildings. I know you have a good overview of what we have available out there.
And don't forget to add at the end of that and report back to the Grand Forks seniors.
We would like that has to come.
Okay, well.
Wording for motions comes from council, please.
Yes, if any of you could please add that to the motion, because that was our problem last time with the library space. We didn't get any word on what happened with the business plan, and then when I went to the then CAO, she said, nothing's happening and no, you can't see council. So that's where it ended.
Okay, well, we won't have that happen
Well, that's,
again.
yeah.
Councillor Zelinski will be asking for a report back within a reasonable length of time.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Within a month, that sounds.
I'm asking staff to, since they're doing the work here. But-
So, to be clear then, the request is that staff investigate and become real estate brokers to determine a location?
Well, the problem is we're in the real estate business with the flood anyway, so, but to find out where the Slavonic Hall is, Ron's gonna get costs on how to upgrade his facility, and so hopefully with those two things in mind, in a month's time, we should be able to have some more options, or some more information at the table to talk about.
Oh,
Councillor Crog.
also along with that, so we want to look at Veronica Lodge and wait maybe for the quotes that Ron's going to get. Slavonic Hall, we can talk to the province if possible, just to find out.
The insurance settlement.
And the insurance and a confirmation of what's happening to the building in City Park. So is it going to be flat?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So.
Well stated, Councillor Crog.
That's, well.
Is that specific enough, Kevin?
That is specific enough, thank you.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor.
Can we have that motion reread then?
No. You can't.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, I kind of reluctantly speak against the motion, I guess. I'd like to see us find a way forward for this group, but I don't want to send staff into an endless loop. We are in too many endless loops already, and I worry that our staff, understaffed, is overwhelmed already. I kind of wish that we could perhaps, of the three buildings, we would just focus on one. That helped me live with it a little bit. I wish that, I know the Senior Society have over 100 members.
Yes.
Some very talented.
Not any longer, we're down, chop it in half.
And December 12th, you had 118 members.
And now?
Now we're down to 68.
Ooh.
Because of unsettled circumstances.
Several left and did not pay their membership.
Okay, well, I won't comment on that. All right. Still have some talented members. You do have $9,000 in the bank. It certainly sounds like you have the cooperation of a landlord. That building, the Hardyview Lodge, it certainly has haunted our community.
Haunted?
Well, the community built it as a community effort in the early 80s. Partnered with
A lot of volunteers.
A lot of volunteer time, donations went into that building and the gardens surrounding it. It certainly pains me to see that after 20 years it was abandoned, basically. And still sits there. I'm certainly grateful that there's, one entrepreneur is trying to recover it. I certainly wish him well. it certainly does look like an ideal place for a senior center and senior accommodations, but I think that we're at least $1 million away from that.
Unloop us here.
Anyhow, so basically, Your Worship, if we can really define that motion to just so staff they don't have to go solve the seniors problem, because that's an endless loop. But if we can come back to investigate the Slavonic Hall and report on the disposition of the insurance monies for the City Park building. You know, and really, the final analysis, the solution, we have to be led by the seniors. They have to put together the pieces that we can give them. And then come to us with a concrete proposal. Otherwise, we are going to send staff off to solve somebody else's problem. Thank you, Your Worship.
Councillor Studley.
The easiest way to unloop this would be fee for service. It would be just that easy. If you do want to investigate Slavonical, I would almost prefer us to start talking with whoever is caretaking that, whether it is some sort of reminiscence of the Slavonic Society or something. I wouldn't want to just sort of go in there and usurp that building. I feel it would feel very uncomfortable just sort of going to the top and usurping, whether we could start at the bottom and just see how they would feel about usurping it before we do that.
Councillor Zelinski.
Yeah, well, it's what I consider the fly in the ointment. I'll ask a question anyway of our building inspector, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
If he's willing to answer.
If the kitchen facility at Veronica Lodge and the space the seniors want to use is brought up to snuff, let's put it this way, and the rest of the building, nothing happened, can the seniors actually occupy that space without anything else happening in the building?
To the councillor, through the mayor, certainly. That building is cordoned off with firewalls and other appropriate fire separations to certainly allow construction or ongoing construction in essentially the residential components, and have the assembly use, including the kitchen, pretty much self-contained and quite usable just on its own.
Thank you.
Yeah, the success of using Veronica Lodge depends on a business plan that makes the whole building successful, which means the owner's portion has to be successful as well. Am I wrong there?
No, my concern was timeline, where the seniors' timeline is probably a lot shorter than the developer's timeline. That's my point.
Okay. All right. So have we unlooped it enough here that we've really identified some specific buildings to look at? Is that what we're doing here, Chris?
Councillor, can I hear the motion? I know it's been kind of an
I think we've modified it a bit. Kevin, do you want to take a shot at that?
I'm going to take a shot at it, and I please offer corrections. As it stands, I've got the resolution is to ask staff to investigate the use of the Slavonic Hall, compile costs for Veronica Lodge from the building owner, and determine the insurance settlement for the City Park building, and report that back to council and the Senior Society of these options.
I think we're scratching the building owner's stuff. Let him do that.
Okay.
Okay. And confirmation about the, if that building's coming down. Do we know 100% sure City Park is?
Okay, so I'll add that in as determining insurance settlement and building disposition.
Yeah, that was it.
Ann Palmer?
I just have a question for the seniors. Where would you actually, what's your number one choice? Where do you want to be?
The most suitable choice is where we are right now.
Okay.
Yes.
So focusing on that might be the better way to go?
We don't. The Slavonics is a really good option because it has all the facilities we need. It's there. It's just not being used. So we're caught between a rock and a hard place. You're asking us which is number one preference, and the Veronica Lodge for the seniors is probably the most viable situation. But at this point in time, they say beggars can't be choosers. We would take whatever we could get that was viable.
Is Veronica Lodge on the market for sale?
Ron?
Not presently, no.
It was, they took it off. As everybody said, we would, an ideal place is where we are. It's all ground level. Mr. Moslin's been there, Rob's in there. It's a perfect place, but it needs work, and it needs, the main thing is the seniors haven't got a pocket full of money to put out. But there is over 50% of Granite Forks is considered seniors. I constantly get people stopping me going, oh, what's going on? I used to be part of the seniors. I'm not joined until we have somewhere where we're going to meet all the time. For 6 months, beginning of last year, we were scattered all over the valley. Churches, basements, whatever, to do quilting, card playing, and everything. We went into Veronica Lodge. Right away I had people phone me, well, can we get in there to have meetings? People with 100 people want to meet. There's nowhere in town Granite Forks to meet.
So, can I reinforce something Councillor Moslin is saying? I guess the right path would be if you brought us a business plan for Veronica Lodge, because it sounds like that's what we need in front of council at this point, would be a business plan rather than anything different.
But how do we do a business plan when it's not our building and we're just going to be renting it?
Well, I mean, there would have to be a joint business plan with the owner. Dan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it would help staff too if we would know if this is supposed to be a short-term solution or a permanent long-term solution. The idea with a community center is to have shareable space. We can't afford having buildings stashed all over the place and maintaining those to current codes and standards. So the idea of having a community center that's meant for assorted groups is an option. Ideally, I hear and I understand where you guys are coming from on wanting your own space so you can have things set up and it works for the seniors alone. I don't know if that will be possible in the future to support that separate venue. However, I've heard from other recent community centers that have been built where there is storage facilities built in for the assorted organizations that are using that shared space, where basically you have your locker, you're paying for an area where you can have your banker's boxes, your accounting stuff, your key components, and then you have a shared space, shared tables, shared chairs and stuff. So that is out there, they do exist. I know it's maybe not ideal, but I need to know for staff purpose from council, are we supposed to track down a permanent solution for this problem or a temporary solution?
Okay, well, let's see if we can answer that. I see hands going up. Councillor Cross.
Yeah, it'd be nice to find something permanent as the community center hasn't even gone to referendum or anything. But I'm interested in the potential for a free building or a lower cost building if the province owns a title to the building and we can get them to...
You're talking Slavonic Hall.
The Slavonic Hall, and then any funds could be used to fix up the Slavonic Hall, which would be cheaper than trying to do the whole thing. But if it's not on the table, then we need to look at Veronica Lodge. So I think it's pretty simple. I think we've been going around in kind of circles. For me, I want to know for sure what's happening with that building. What about the insurance money? Is the Slavonic Hall available? And what are they looking for in the way of dollars to make Veronica Lodge work? So it wouldn't really be our staff going in and saying how much it'd be Ron figuring out this is the contractors that it costs this, and the seniors themselves can
It would be a business plan back to us on how they make it operate.
Not a business plan to operate. I'm thinking just to
Get
get
up
it
and running.
up to snuff.
He's asking how much, my impression of what you're saying, Neil, is how much it is gonna cost, timeline, when we can get this up and running. When it comes down to the seniors, I'll say one blank, tell them to get old. You were asking timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could wait till a community center came in place. When's that, 5 years? You know, we would like to have somewhere we can settle into until that happens. And whether it's a Savonic Hall, whether it's Veronica Lodge, it's something we're working at. We've been working on it for 2 years now. We would like to try to work at the point where we can say, okay, let's do this. Let's get up and running. Can we get some help from the city to get up and running? And in 5 years, when the new center goes up, say, okay, we're willing to go and do this.
So the question is, it could be a number of years, but at this point, it may not be the long-term plan.
Yes.
So are we good with the motion, though, in terms of what we're directing our staff to do? This is not the end of the discussion, that's for sure.
Yes, Your Worship. Can I just ask a question through you too, staff?
Yeah.
Can somebody in staff tell, do we have the capacity to carry out the motion?
You know, and that's a question we need to be careful and ask more often, but do we? Is there someone who could do this for us?
The only department that may have the capacity to do that would be the building department right now. I know Mr. Bruce has now a mini-me, so he can maybe has 2 people available, including himself. Once Justin gets here full-time as of next week, he's also got a facilities background, so maybe the 2 of them can work together, but Justin's busy with DMAP items, so
I think also...
I think Mr. Bruce would be able to answer if he has room in his...
How deep do we want to dive into it at this point?
We're already half in, Mr. Mayor, so I don't see taking it the other half is going to be that extreme within the next month. Ralph and I have had numerous discussions about options and potentials, so no, I'm pretty sure we can handle it.
Okay, so you'll be sending something back through to council for discussion. Kevin.
Sorry, before council votes on the resolution, took out Veronica Lodge, are we putting it back in?
Yes.
Well, no,
Yeah, we didn't take it out.
We can only control what we can do. Ron and the seniors will come back with their cost on their building. You know, it's going to be imperative that we have that to make our decision, but we can only do what we can do.
And that was actually the wording of the resolution, was compile costs from the building owners. So if that suits council, to put that back in?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. If it would be possible, Mr. Walker, would it be possible to communicate directly with staff on that? So probably Mr. Bruce, so he can formulate everything into one report and instead of sending the emails to council or anything like that directly? Okay, thank you.
Okay. I think we've gone as far with this today. We haven't voted on this motion. I'm about to. All those in favor? Okay, I think we're going to move forward on it and hopefully not loop ourselves out. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Mr. Mayor, I'll let you last thing.
No.
We're trying to cut everything? Yes, they did. Okay.
Thank you very much. Brenton?
Yeah, hello, cheers.
Hi, Brenton. You're next up on the agenda here.
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Introduce yourself, gentlemen.
Hello, my name is Brenton Raby, and I'm here with Sabin. We've come this morning from Nelson, BC, just down the road in order to make this presentation. I just want to say off the top what a beautiful drive it was here this morning with that full moon. So riding that into this presentation, I feel pretty hopeful. So we're going to go back and forth a bit here, but if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yes, by all means, go ahead.
So what we're here to talk about today, and Sabin will get into more detail, is what's known as the Provincial Cannabis Control Regulation 37. It's a regulation that exists in the marketing section of the control regulations. And it reads quite simply that a person must not market, advertise, or promote any place as a place to consume cannabis or to spend time after consuming cannabis. It's quite an extraordinary subsection or section when people read it and can appreciate that it exists as what we would call a full stop prohibition on any cannabis event or cannabis business not associated with primary sales, which is where the province is currently putting the majority of their energy. Examples would be cannabis cafes, farm gate sales, tours, and any event focused on cannabis culture. We're making a similar presentation in Cranbrook coming up, and there we're focusing very much on agriculture and value added. But I do realize that that translates here into this region as well. But what we've chosen to sort of highlight in our picture there is a picture from what used to be known as the Canna Festival. No matter how you feel about the Canna Fest or a festival that size in a community of this size, the result of Section 37 is that it would not be permitted. And it's important before Sabin begins his slide to understand that if you violate this provision, you're in effect violating a control regulation that's enforced through criminal law and enforced through civil forfeiture. So there's very serious consequences, and the province is enforcing this as we see.
So Section 37 is a full stop prohibition for any business other than retail primary, as Brenton explained. This provincial section prevents people from gathering to socialize, share, celebrate, or even talk about their legal cannabis. This includes music festivals, cultural and arts festivals, or even just a gathering of friends, perhaps at a park. The marketing terms farm sales, local, and craft are all becoming more common. They're very hot button topics. People assume that it's possible and permitted, but it isn't necessarily. Cannabis farm gate sales, tours, consumption cafes, and other types of attractions such as festivals can provide meaningful job opportunities for BC and small communities such as Grand Forks. Endorsing this resolution will support legal business development throughout the entire Kootenay region as well as the province as a whole. There is currently no federal prohibition on consumption cafes, on arts festivals, or cannabis-related events. Farm gate sales and tours support local agriculture, and we feel that if we get more local support for changing some of these prohibitive regulations, that we can really open up the sector for more growth and more opportunity for everybody.
It's just important for me to highlight at this point that we're not talking necessarily about a consumption cafe where cannabis is available for sale. We're taking it out of monetizing it and putting it into what you would call perhaps even a cultural context or community context. The section on the left represents a brochure that we used in order to complete a survey and an information campaign based in Nelson. Limited resources. We'd love to be here more, believe me. So the Regional District of the Central Kootenays on January 16th board meeting passed the following resolution. I'm not going to read the where is clauses, but you could certainly fit, for this region and for Grand Forks in particular, into that exact wording or something similar. What's important is the therefore be it resolved that the Union of BC Municipalities work with the provincial governments to remove Section 37 from the BC Cannabis Regulation. This will remove a significant barrier to the success of the cannabis industry in British Columbia. To make sure that we're not going in circles here, what we're hoping for is that we're building support for the endorsement of this resolution as we head into the Association of the Kootenay Boundary Local Government Convention coming up in April. Subsequent to that, if it's endorsed at that point, moving on to the UBCM convention in the hope to have a substantial impact on the province. At this point, the hope would be that there would be a motion passed by the Grand Forks Council, I'm not sure what the wording would be, but to endorse this resolution. If it doesn't seem proper in terms of procedure to endorse this resolution, I feel we have a good opportunity just to get this information out there moving up to the conventions.
So we undertook our own third-party survey that we designed ourselves, and I was the main proponent of this. We conducted the survey mainly in Nelson, but it is ongoing and it is available for anybody to take. Through this survey, we found that our most poignant data was the result of this question here, and we asked people if they thought that Section 37 was a reasonable or an unreasonable restriction. And we found that 85% of everybody polled found that Section 37 was unreasonable. We also point to the BC Provincial Survey that was conducted leading up to the release of the new cannabis regulations, and they asked people if BC should consider establishing licensed businesses that people could go and consume cannabis in a safe, a community-oriented way, as opposed to being an alienating or more of an alone type activity. And 75% of everybody agreed. Whether you consume cannabis or not, I think it's important that we all recognize that people have a right to gather and that people need support from others, whether they're dealing with any sort of event in their lives, or everybody likes to go to the park and play soccer. I'm sure people that consume cannabis also like to do similar things while enjoying their hobbies.
It should be noted that the BC Provincial Survey on Cannabis was the best attended survey in Canadian history, with 48,000 people responding. So our final slide here, and what I'd like to do before I go into this slide is just mention we like a short presentation at this point because we do enjoy answering questions and providing other information that we have, and this issue certainly brings up a lot of questions. But at its core, and this is how bad policy becomes regulations, when policy doesn't consider the context of the Charter and how Canadian government statutorily operates. The fundamental freedoms outlined in Section 2 of the Canadian Charter outlines the freedom of peaceful assembly and the freedom of association. Previous court rulings at the Supreme Court level involving freedom of association says quite simply that the basic theory underlying the Charter is that the state, you, will respect choices made by individuals and to the greatest extent possible will avoid subordinating these choices to any one conception of the good life. Essentially meaning that if somebody doesn't like it, it's not a good enough reason to prohibit it. And in fact, as we move through cannabis legalization, is the dismantling of the fear, the prejudice, and the assumption of possible harm that we're looking to unwind. So the Charter is really where we're coming with from this, in the hopes to have a bigger effect outside of local government. So we're suggesting that by supporting the Regional District of the Central Kootenay resolutions towards the UBCM, that we can all contribute to improve provincial cannabis policy and regulations. One question that we do get asked is that this is a complex issue, and how do all these different elements that might come into a consumption area reconcile each other? I have two answers for that. Number one is policy can be as simple or as complicated as you choose to make it. I would argue that it could be quite simple in this regard. And secondly, that having a complex policy or regulatory conditions on one particular issue is not an excuse, certainly in the courts, it's not an excuse to allow for prohibition. So I'm finding people end up in prohibition by default. So that being said, and I'm happy to leave this slide on for people to look at it a little bit more detail. But as we're here, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, and can I start with one? Can you clarify the relationship of smoking cigarettes and smoking cannabis and comment on that?
Sure. So, yeah, this is a big one we get. So number one, there is no smoking in any public place, in any building in Canada. This is quite clear. So we're not talking smoking, we're talking alternate means of consumption. In a harm reduction sense, the conversation itself is enriching, but what we would also expect to have at a consumption lounge would be adequate ventilation as per the ASHRAE requirements that outline environmental tobacco smoke. And second to that, there is no smoking. And third, the alternate means of consumption involving conduction heat is through a vaporizer, all of which are well documented in terms of minimizing, if not completely eliminating, the associated harms of smoking cannabis.
So no joints or bongs?
You know, in my world, sure, yes, for sure, all of it. In the world of the regulations as they exist that we can't hope to come up against, not at all. So we're not looking at joints and bongs. If you're outside at an event, for sure, in BC now under the provincial government, you can now wander through a festival with a beer in your hand. In Nelson, where I'm from, they've got a patio outside of the store where kids come with their parents, right, to get drunk. Like, not the kids. So yeah, you know, yeah, as far as personally I'm concerned, bong away, right? But as far as the regulations go, inside, absolutely not. And so, like so many people from the cannabis community, we want to be legal. We want to be regulated, but we want to be efficient in how we do it. And one thing we do well is we talk great, right? Sit in a circle, get chatty, get the harm reduction strategies out and in front of all of this.
I'd like to comment.
So one more comment, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'd like to just say something. As a cannabis professional, I've been working with cannabis for over 6 years in 3 different dispensaries in 2 different countries. I have found that the vast majority of cannabis users actually do not smoke cannabis. And I think that's important to remember.
Councillor Krog.
Ow! Someone put a leg there. Can you go back to the toad slide?
Sure. Sure. This one here, yeah.
So it says currently no federal prohibition on a consumption cafe as long as you don't market it, advertise it, or promote it. You could have a cafe?
Right, so no, so federally there's no prohibition, and then in order of government then, so that defers as they did with all cannabis, a lot of cannabis legislation to the province. So the province chose to enact, it's the provincial regulation, and you note when you read the regulation that it says any place. So as an example of how the clear intent on this is to be a blanket prohibition, and they're very clear that that's what intention is, that it's not a public place, it's any place. For example, if I wanted to have a home concert at my place and I put out material that suggested, even obliquely, that there was cannabis to be involved, if it was a Neil Young acoustic one, you know, in fact, they could come after you because it's any place. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing enforcement actions that are happening at an administrative level, so they don't carry a large burden of cost on their enforcement. These are letters going out in the mail, right? Especially if you own the building. So what I'm hearing back, despite some really leading activists, you know, working to opening in spite of this, many people are absolutely afraid. My assumption is that the CannaFest is no longer the CannaFest because of Section 37.
Yes. And opening up for further. You got some hands up there, sir?
I got a question. Like, how is this your cafe? You open up your cafe, people are token up. How does that work with WCB regulations where you can't have somebody working in there serving you coffee?
Right, so here in BC, WorkSafe regulations already exist to protect workers in the work environment. We're suggesting that there's no need for an extra level or a full prohibition, that the WorkSafe guidelines are in fact really clear about what we can and can't do, and the business model, if you will, would happily continue to operate within the regulations. The number one is, as the mayor has suggested, is the actual smoking, which we know is not going to be permitted.
Okay, why they can't do that with tobacco products?
Well, you can. So if I'm out, if I choose to have an event, and I say on the bottom of the brochure that people are allowed, that there's a smoking area, right? I can't do that. Like, you can do that with tobacco, right? Something that kills you. We can all go out and get drunk and like just let her rip, right?
Yeah, but you can't walk down the street with a beer. You can with a doobie in your mouth.
Well, again, sorry, I shouldn't be talking to Callie. It's a bit argumentative. My point is that there exists operating regulations that cover a whole lot of what standard operational worries would be. Unique to cannabis, I don't see why it needs to be prohibited.
But you're talking again about a vaporized environment, not a smoking or toking environment. I think that there was some confusion.
Yeah, very clearly it doesn't involve smoking. I mean, in my private home, for sure. But Section 37 argumentatively could apply to my private home as well.
And the problem is that a lot of people who live in apartments are not able to smoke now because of general prohibition in apartments, and have no place outside to do it discreetly. And so we've been very restrictive here in Grand Forks about smoking. So we have as tight regulations as you can put in, expecting that there will be some areas defined by business where smoking cigarettes can happen. But I also agree. I think there's a need for a consumption element within the cannabis industry. We have 4 active stores, 3 active stores, 2 pending.
Right. So buy, run home, be alone. There was an interview I saw from Vancouver with an activist, and she essentially summed it up as, wow, it used to be illegal to dance, let's say, but now we've made it legal to dance. Unless you've danced before, you like dancing, you know how to dance. You know, we're back on our heels so much here for the apprehension of harm without the manifestation of real harm. And the move from apprehension to a true understanding is what's evolving right now, with our goal being a reasonable relaxation of this one section.
Section 34. So I'm not seeing council jumping into whether they're going to support this or not. Do you want to discuss that with me at all? Councillor Zelensky.
Yeah, so welcome to our council meeting. And I wish all your luck in your promotion of this idea. When we get to the AKBLG, we can vote at that time, because we'll be there, and hopefully you have success.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And as far as the process goes, you know, it's to reach for a motion to support is something that in your discussion to follow, you know, you can sort of field it out, and if it doesn't have you know, the grounding in your willingness to do that right now, or if you don't see it appropriate given the procedure leading up to the AKBLG, then I accept that and would just simply feel happy having made the trip with Sabin for information circumstances.
So the coverings on the window, is that part of the Section 34 regulations that
It's 37.
37, that they cover the windows? We find that I've had a number of complaints locally about that, and from the store owners and from people in town feeling that it's threatening almost to have covered stores.
Well, as that applies to Section 37, I suppose that, you know, observing cannabis being bought and sold through the window could somehow be misconstrued as marketing or advertising it as a place to consume it. You know, I think that's really a matter of semantics, but I believe that the coverings on the windows are meant to put another barrier between the public and the assumption of possible harm. Obviously, we know that the cannabis is not going to come out of the store and harass you, but a lot of people are made uncomfortable by it, and so it's more of a civil, it's a gesture, I find. And yes, it does kind of move it towards, oh, well, why does it need to be covered up? Is there something going on? What's up? I think that moving forward, things will definitely change in that regard. And I think that Section 37 is one of the barriers to that. I think that opening it up, having people being able to see what's going on, makes it more of a commonplace storefront, say like a coffee shop or a restaurant or a shoe store even perhaps.
Right.
And just one last comment, and I'll be quick here regarding your question, sir, is that coverings on windows to me represent unintended consequences of local government regulations. Certainly in Nelson, the debate was coverings, no coverings. The police are definitely not for coverings because they showed it as a high value. If a robbery is happening inside, they want to be able to see inside from their perspective. So in the rush to over-regulate, it comes with the requirement for the drawback. Otherwise, we're going to be left with hasty decisions and unintended consequences.
Mr. Johnson.
Well, I think it's just a ploy to get people to smoke more because makes it taboo. It's like rub shops, you know. You make sure they can't see inside. You wonder what's going on.
Sure. And in fact, the massage, the steam bath and massage was kind of what they went with if you look at it from the design.
Just to comment on that again, the Government of Canada just released their stats related to cannabis. And in their usage reports, they've reported no increased usage among all age demographics, despite cannabis being legalized.
Old people.
Yeah.
Okay, Council, I don't see anybody jumping to a motion at this point, but I'm hoping that a lot of this sunk in, but I don't see it developing into a motion of support at this level. It's a lot to consume, and Council, I'm sure, will be influenced in terms of their vote at AKBLG.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One last thing to draw to your attention as you might leave from here. Statistics Canada has a wonderful website overall. One section of that website right now is what they're calling the Cannabis Stat Hub. It's updated quarterly every 3 months. It just was updated, including their year-end summary. The Stats Canada Cannabis Stat Hub. And it's a wonderful resource, and sir, it gives you the breakdown of age, use, and indeed the seniors stand to benefit. Not only from cannabis itself, but from ending the isolation of consuming cannabis alone at home.
Great, thank you very much, Now.
Thank you.
Thanks for all of the tribute to Ed all the way over from Nelson. Ms. Palmer behind you.
I just got a question. What's the deal with the liquor places? Do they have to have their windows all blocked out and marked off?
No, in fact, on my drive over here, the billboard outside the liquor vendor in town says wine cheaper than therapy. Right? So I would suggest that cannabis that you could grow your own is even better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for driving over.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Closer than I thought.
Did I interpret that right, councilors, in terms of you're not desiring a motion?
I think it doesn't mean anything to vote at.
No, I think that's Okay, council reports. And Councillor Moslin, would you give the honors?
Somewhere. I'm looking for the person who's still got their mic on.
I think you're okay.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I brought forward, because of the cancellation of tonight's regular meeting, I did ask that my report be brought forward to the Committee of the Whole. Because there was a couple important items of business that I wanted to have a chance to put in front of the public. And first, of course, is the Grand Forks Social Services Advisory Group. My report is there. As once again, I have to remind the audience that I actually wrote the report on March the 2nd, so that it could be published in the agenda for the date. So it does include a little bit of forecasting in order to have something to write. But it has been a busy time for the Social Services Advisory Group, and we're deep into the weeds here in terms of planning the point in time count. All right, so I want to make sure I have a chance, an opportunity to answer questions as well as direct the public to the right information. We are planning that account, that event. There is a 2-hour training event this Thursday for those interested who wish to apply on March 12th at the RDKB board office from 2 to 4. The trainer will be piped in by Zoom into the RDKB meeting room. It will be a young man by the name of Dustin Lupik, who's been training communities all over the province in the mechanics and methodology of the pit count. People, we have put out through the internet and indeed on the city's website the application form for those who wish to volunteer for that event. If you can't fill it out, you can come to that event and fill out an application form and a waiver at that event. That is the training event on March 12th. The actual event, the actual pit count will take place Sunday, March 22nd, Monday, March 23rd. In between, the pit subcommittee will be taking a look at all the volunteer applications that are coming in and assigning volunteers a specific assignment based on when they could make it, who we could partner them with, and the locations that we're hoping to enumerate. So that's kind of the details. So once again, if you can't download the PDF, you can come to the training event at 2 o'clock this Thursday, fill in one and the waiver form, let's take the training, and then you can expect your specific assignment during the course of the following week. So there's that. Is there any questions from council on that, or any questions from the audience? Can I do that?
Certainly, yes, open it up. This is on the point of time count that's being planned. The format is laid out. I think the interesting thing is it's moved to a format that's more consistent throughout the province. So yes, the data that's collected would have comparability, which we've gained in terms of really expanding that to include the standard format being used in various other communities.
Yes, Your Worship, and the province will actually do the data crunching.
Are they giving us any money?
No.
No. Mr. Johnson?
How many volunteers are you hoping to get? What kind of commitment are you thinking you should need from them in terms of time and availability and such?
Okay, we're sort of hoping to get about 30 plus volunteers. Some of those volunteers are the professionals, that is people who are regular outreach workers, are shelter workers, who have familiarity with the population. As much as possible, we're going to pair volunteer counters, or we're going to go out in teams of 2. So you have an experienced volunteer with somebody who might not have as much familiarity. But the bottom line is we're looking for about 30 plus. I'm pretty sure we're going to get that. If somebody doesn't get an assignment, we're also hoping, by filling out that application form, that we're hoping that we're going to be able to contact you for future events as well. So we're trying to create a bank of volunteers to work with the population.
And I understand that the city is committed to some minor costs for duplication and clerical things that may be required.
That's right, Your Worship. The city and staff has assured me that they'll handle the photocopying and the collating, that sort of thing. There is some petty costs, which we seem to be absorbing as volunteers.
And you put that out to council. I didn't see anyone objecting to that either. Good.
Okay.
All right, the floor is still yours.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Well, the rest of my report is there. Discover Grand Forks has a meeting coming up on March 24th. Part of that, I hope, will be an examination of the new graphics that Vicom Studios is working on for the Trails networks around town. I did attend on March 3rd, and I think 2 or 3 of my colleagues also did. I've got it here as a transit discussion. It was actually a town hall by Area D. One of the most interesting things about that particular presentation, Your Worship, and once again I remind you that I wrote this report before I actually attended the event, was that the clickers, the voting clickers were used. Now those of us who have attended large conventions and that sort of thing have used that technology before. And it's usually, sometimes I first started seeing it used, I believe it was the BCTF, in order to, whenever there was a recount needed, you would use the clickers.
It's close, we vote with the clicker.
You would go with the clickers, right? Otherwise it's a show of hands. But that has evolved into almost an immediate feedback of community support. The area director, Russell, did challenge the group with several issues that he did put to the clicker, if I could use that expression. One of the ones that was most interesting to me, Your Worship, about transit, was he basically put to the group, and I counted about 70 people there. He asked them a question, do you want to scrap the current transit plan? Do you want to leave it as the status quo? Do you want to lessen it? Or do you want to improve it and pay more?
Yes.
Well, I was actually kind of surprised, Your Worship, when over 60% of the people there said we would be willing to pay more
for a better service.
For a better service.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's kind of surprising. My impression of Area D residents, sometimes they're a little bit more conservative. So there seems to be, people really do want a transit service that works. Area D residents have haven't benefited as much from the existing service because some of them live outside the ranges of service. And so they find themselves, although paying for it, they don't get much. It was an interesting call because also, as Mr. Director Russell asked for a show of hands, how many people used the service? Well, of the 70 odd people there, only maybe 1 or 2 or 3 used the service.
Yeah, I had trouble with that. Yeah.
And, but then many of them, well, like I said, 60% of the crowd said, you know, improve the service, we're willing to pay for it. Anyhow, I just wanted to bring that up to council's attention because that issue of transit is.
So we are planning to have city discussions of that nature, and I'm wondering whether the clickers would be beneficial in that meeting as well. But you know,
if we can get our hands on that technology, Your Worship,
it's available. I think as long as they make sure they all go back.
Yeah, they watch them pretty carefully. I noted that. Yeah.
They'll charge you $50 a pop for the ones that go back.
So. Might still be worth it.
Count them in, count them out.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And
just one more, I would like to shout out to the Boundary Musical and Theater Society about their performances this past week. Congratulations to Ms. Bird and congratulations to Councillor Studley for their parts in putting on another wonderful performance. People say Grand Forks is dying. No, Grand Forks is not dying. Grand Forks culture is alive and well and radiant with energy and talent. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Corlick has a written report, basically her attendance at the museum, the RDKB activity, her transit meeting, the one we talked about on the 3rd, Kathy was there, and again, she and Councillor Thompson are in Kelowna at workshops. And further council reports, Councillor Krog.
Nothing right now, thank you.
Councillor Zielinski.
No.
Councillor Studley.
Nothing right now.
Quiet all the way around the room. You know, I just take this chance with the audience being here today that possibly Councillor Studley, we could talk about the Millennial Committee and the other Young Entrepreneurs Committee that is part of the Discover Boundary, that we talked about the possibility that is an overlap and that it may be an opportunity there to get us further along in the vision that we were sold by our consultant in terms of that being an important voice to be heard. So I'm assuming we're going to move that direction. Okay, a motion to accept the council report. This is an unusual situation. I don't think we can actually make a motion to accept it at the regular meeting, since we're not in a regular meeting.
Oh, these were the report templates that we moved simply.
Yeah, no, I realize that. So let's just vote to accept the reports.
Yeah.
Councillor Zielinski, Councillor Krog, all those in favor. And the RDKB, I guess basically with Kathy Way, the best we have is our recollections of that meeting with Rowley. I think that was really well done. Unfortunately, for many years, they have that meeting on the same night that we had council meetings, and so we always missed it, but we had a good turnout there this time. It was interesting to see I think in particular, what I heard was the work plan approach at the regional table has tightened things up considerably over the last year or so. But a good informative session for regional people. Councillor?
Yeah, just a couple things I'd like to comment on, Your Worship, about that. First off, trying to get a handle on the regional district business. The regional district does publish their agendas ahead of time. I guess my question, you were once a director of did you ever receive anything electronically from the regional district, or did you just get an email saying, well, the agendas are up, here's the link? I mean, how did you get your agenda packages?
They would send me the link.
They would send you the link?
Yeah.
Okay. Then my request, Your Worship, if possible, can the rest of council get the link? Can you forward that link to us? You know, we are trying to get a handle on the business of the regional district table, and
I thought that's what you got under agendas, RDKB.
I got that, yes, and it does work. I got that because we always get our agendas.
I don't know.
Kill it. We get our agendas on the Thursday before before the Monday meeting. So there's a lot of that. I guess my question is are the RDKB agendas published earlier?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. This link works at all the time. It's always the same location.
Yes.
So it's posted on their public website as it gets released. Councillor Corlick would probably get a special invite when it is released from their staff, but I don't receive one. I don't know when the agendas are out. I can ask for that and then pass it on to council.
This
link works at any time.
Yeah. Yes. And I have used that link, obviously, Your Worship. I want to point out that the Civic Web agendas seem to be a lot easier to deal with than the e-scribe. I don't know if that's just a bit of a poke. But
I thought you were asking Councillor Corlick to possibly sort some of that out.
I didn't want to put that on her.
Well, but it can be done because so much of it really doesn't relate to this side of the
yes, I understand
regional district. So if she's able to to sort that out in terms of that information.
Yes, quite
Great,
often.
but there will be some work involved in it.
Yes, quite often there might be a long PDF report from a consultant on an issue tied up in that agenda. Well, you'd have to be able to download the agenda into a PDF and then extract those pages, and then, that.
Not unusual to have 800 pages.
And it's not, but it's very difficult for somebody who, that's what, you hear what I'm saying,
Yeah.
I don't want to put the onus on Councillor Corlett.
More of what happens at the BCDC is directly relatable to us in the region.
And they are also, their minutes and agendas are also at the same place.
Right, that's a good agenda to have access to on an ongoing basis, more so than the larger regional one at times.
Anyhow, thank you, Your Worship. And one other question, if I can, about the RDKB. It says residential property taxes, electoral area D. They got this lovely little printout, right? It's got the general taxation, but it's also specific to area D. Can we get one regional property taxes Grand Forks with the RDKB? Can we get a print? Somehow, do they have a printout that they can put out? Instead of area D, they put Corporation of Grand Forks.
Pass that on to our CFO.
I'm sure you've seen those. There they are.
Yeah, it was very visual.
Yes, and it does serve a purpose as a backbone in a town hall meeting.
Right.
As well.
Right.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Anything further on that, Councillor Zelinski?
No, I attended the Area D meeting also as a taxpayer there, and impressed, I guess. I had another word in mind, but what was presented to us as far as the numbers, how it was laid out, was very informative. I would hope that at some point in time we could move that way also. But yeah, every number that you could think of and the background to it and the opportunity to ask more questions. Hopefully we can be as transparent with our costs in the future before that.
Okay, and so this is not a report, so I won't ask for a motion to accept it. Presentations from staff, monthly highlight reports. Can I have a motion on that? Committee of the whole receives the monthly reports. Councillor Zelinski, no need for a second and comments. Discussion.
Can I ask questions?
Yes.
Just a question to Outside Works. It says inspected electrical meters at Raven Place for water damage. So I was wondering, what water damage are we talking
There
about?
was a flood because of a fire emergency.
At Raven Place?
Yes.
Yes.
Yikes. Okay.
Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have probably about half a dozen questions here, or one less now that Councillor Moslem mentioned. Water and sewer excavation and approximate repair of 10 meters of sewer line. With I guess council's permission and staff's knowledge, what I would really like to see on this one myself is how it's affected our GIS system. If I could get an approval to go down to Public Works, talk to Rosemary, and just see the processes taking this 30 feet of pipe, depreciating the existing stuff, putting the new stuff in, and how that changes our asset management plan. It would be great to see how our system actually functions in the information part of it.
Let's deal with that. I have no interest in that whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's why I asked just for myself, or Ms. Councillor Moslem, I know enjoys that stuff too, so instead of boring the rest of council, if it's okay that we can understand that.
Just to ask how that would improve your ability to oversee that function.
I guess it's a knowledge of how our systems work, as far as asset management is a big thing, the dollar costs associated with it, the long-range planning of it, and it's just knowledge of our systems on how we take an asset that might be, let's say 80% depreciated, take it out of the system, putting in something that's got now a 50-year timeline and how that sort of affects things would be great to see on my part.
We have two hands here, Daniel as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So first off, so for a 10-meter section, that's basically a repair. If Rosemary updates the entire linear asset, I would be shocked, because a 10-meter repair is a very small area. To split up the asset into multiple assets, to basically say this one piece of section of pipe is now the most modern pipe and the rest isn't, I can't see that happening. However, I can see where she flags the repair on the system, that it was done on this line over that much time. I think we can easily put a workshop together over the summer for how the assets get updated. With Justin, we're going to be working on this capital asset management framework that would dedicate how our assets are going to be updated and how our assets are going to be depreciated over time. So I think
Dolores,
the sheets can fill in too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, this is something that we're going to be working on, and we will be keeping the historical data, layering on the new repairs as they come along. And this is what Justin will be working on, and developing the asset management system and the tracking system. So yeah, I think a workshop probably over the summer is reasonable.
Okay, and Councillor Moslin.
Yes, Your Worship, I would just like to sort of reiterate, I'm a real map head, and I really appreciate the work that Rosemary's been doing. I'm looking at it right here. I would love to have the opportunity to sit down with her and give her some feedback. Like, here's why it works, here's how it works for me. Here's the hindrances. Like the default opening is with the parcel fabric on. Well, it'll take you 5 minutes for the parcel fabric to load. You know, in other words, my thinking is that we might be able to make it more usable if we were able to give her a little bit of feedback. I know that when you look at the map and then you look at the water mains and the sewer mains, how's that work? I mean, you have a pipe that goes hasn't got anything in either end. Because I imagine she's still trying to get the data in to the set, and I'm looking forward to the day when it's all complete. But my compliments to Rosemary. She's come a long way. I mean, this map is just, just to show that. See what I'm looking at there? It's come a long way from just the parcel fabric to now they put the manhole covers in. I mean, that's an amazing amount of work. And my compliments to her. I look forward to it becoming more usable, and I would really like the opportunity, if through a workshop or whatever, to sit down and give us some feedback on how it works for me, and maybe she can give us some tips on how to use it better.
Yeah, the pipes to nowhere is we've decided that we would like to just put the information in at this time that we know for sure. Because it's very misleading for folks when you've got a pipe showing up on the wrong side of the road, and what happens and has happened in the past is that people go and they'll take that as the gospel and they say, but you told me and your map said the pipe was on the other side of the road. And so yeah, we're working, and every time we do a dig we correct the locations and we put that data in, and yeah, Rosemary's been updating it. And yeah, I think she'd be happy to take in any feedback, and if you've got that feedback, if you could send it in to us, and then we can pass it on to Rosemary, and then we can put that together in the workshop for the summer.
So it looks like we're headed to a workshop, Councillor Zelensky.
Yes, and I would like to say that's not needed. Obviously, staff has limited time. You've only got a couple of people here that are very interested in the system and want to know a bit about it. Whether pipes are on one side or not, but to, again, steal from staff time, steal from council time, when there's only 2 members of council that could take an hour out and probably get our questions answered and move forward on that would be probably better use of time for everybody.
Fair point. Mr. Johnson.
Just a suggestion that when you go, bring a camera along and share it with the world.
That'd be excellent, yeah.
Maurice?
Yeah, as the manager of operations, I have a bit of a concern with just thinking we can come down and talk to Rosemary. She is very busy at this point in time, and always will be. To have a group session maybe in the summer might be a better idea, and more information so I can absorb this and talk to Rosemary on it. Yeah, just to have the thought that you can just walk in and, not walk in, but go discuss it with Rosemary. It takes some coordination just to do that, because I don't want to interfere her time. She's very busy doing the work for everybody in that facility, and plus in this facility, so I think some more discussion has to be made on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's why I'm bringing it up now. If we felt that we could just walk in, I'm sure Councillor Moslin and I would have done that a long time ago. So that's why it's at the table here now. But again, for staff timing, for a half a dozen questions,
Yeah,
I don't know.
hear your argument on that, and Dolores.
As Mr. Johnson pointed out, we'd want it to be public, so the workshop would be for anybody from the public who is interested as well, as we put this together. And I do get a lot of requests for folks who'd like to be able to use that and access the information online, and we are working on that. So we could put together that workshop and open it up to the public.
Okay.
Crap. Okay, so public workshop on our GIS system this summer, what month, so I can write it down?
Don't commit yourself too tightly on it.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, so our new CEO is starting next week. It would probably be prudent for council to let him get caught up to speed on this as well, and set the priorities here for workshops. Council needs to have a workshop on the SSAT tool again. The annual report stuff is coming up, so that's kind of first in line. Justin with his CAMF, Capital Asset Management Framework stuff, that's got to be coming because that's important. So we can probably tie this in. I can't say right now for a month for sure. I would let the CAO decide on that. And like again, he's here next week. After that, let's say right now June, July is probably fair. This gives enough time to Rosemary to prepare, and for Boris to have the discussions with her to ensure the staff is ready for this.
Okay, so capacity question, June, July?
Okay, so my understanding is there'll be a public presentation June, end of July at the latest on our GIS system. Is that what I heard?
That's the target.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on with my other questions then, Mr. Mayor.
It could have been my heart.
Under general development and engineering, we've got our, I guess it's infamous by now, definitions on our zoning bylaw. Of that list that you have down there, you missed a community kitchen. I've asked that being added onto the list. Please refer to it, would be great. Under current planning, page 20 of our 45, lots of discussions with people that want to develop in our community. Can we get a little more detail on all these projects?
I'm sorry, I missed that back up again.
Discussions continue with developer on proposal for highway commercial property rezoning. Staff continue to work on work with property owners to develop infill properties. There's a few of those like that, and just a little more on
more detail you're asking on that.
Yes, please.
Okay, and we kind of agreed that from planning we would receive some things that are not meant to be kept in camera, and that we would just get some general idea of larger developments coming forward in a way that we could accept without putting ourselves again in a position of having more information than we really should be dealing with at that time. So would an update at this point from planning satisfy that concern?
Yeah, I didn't put it in the presentation, but I have questions on it, so if someone wants to talk, is there going to be a 50-story apartment building, or give us some more detail, please?
So we've talked about this before in terms of sort of a general overview, and I'm assuming that's still on the books in terms of how we interact.
Yeah, I get a lot of phone calls, and I can't bring, until I get an actual formal written application of some sort, it doesn't trigger the public, like a public notification process or a process for notification to council. So it's spring, and in the spring I get just a lot of phone calls inquiring about different types of developments or infill, or people want to move here, or there's just an abundance of them. I do keep track of these phone calls in terms of just sort of general what they're about, whether they're about a subdivision or rezoning or somebody moving here. I keep keep track of that. So maybe what I could do is keep track of those and just give you a general idea of whether it's people moving here looking to buy property or
the next in camera.
No, this could be out. It could be on camera because I'll just keep it general.
Yeah, okay.
And then it's just maybe an idea of sort of the topics. And in the spring, it tends to be like this. We get a lot of calls about people wanting to move here or it's spring and people they want a subdivision, they want to develop, they want to build. And I get a lot of inquiries of developers that are just fishing. So they're just calling around different areas in BC. They're asking about what we have, what are our tax rates, and they're just fishing for the most part. Very few of them actually ever develop into anything concrete. So, but I can keep track of the general nature of the inquiries, and then I can pass that along.
Would that give you some comfort there? I think what we're trying to avoid is the message here that there's anything sort of going on that we're not aware of in terms of any big changes or directions. So, you know, with that sort of thing at this point in an open public meeting, can give you more comfort.
Thanks for staff and their comments, and that's sort of what I'm looking for my education, I guess, are these discussions all commercial buildings? One of my big concerns is residential housing in this community, and it'd be nice to know if, we had 50 inquiries on residential housing, as opposed to no, we had one on a commercial building type thing. So some of those general type of things would definitely help. So I'm down to bylaw services, where we had 2 complaints about unauthorized residential occupancy. And I guess my concern is I hope it's not with vacant buildings in North Rockville or whatever the issues around that. Could I get some more information?
Certainly, Councillor. Through the mayor. We had 2 really quite specific concerns about individuals who were apparently living within a garage, which was creating some disturbances all hours of the day and night in the neighborhood. That has been resolved.
Thank you. And I'm going to assume that during the budget discussion, we had security services. I believe it's $40K in the budget. The question at that time is that adequate? With the things that have happened recently, I'm hearing you say that it's still adequate is what we have in the budget for those security services. Then
it certainly appears to be so far. Yes.
Okay, and I think what the only other question I have, Mr. Mayor, is under procurement. Procurement. Yes, that's the word. I see RFPs and RFQs, nothing's listed there, yet our manager of capital infrastructure told me that we'd have one out there for our engineer of record. He told me that last week, but I don't see it on here. Can someone explain?
Let's just clarify that minor misinterpretation. What have we got out there for RFPs or requests?
I can speak to that. Staff's currently reviewing. We have 3 different managers right now looking at the RFP for the, or an RFQ, actually, a request for qualification for the engineer of record. So I've finished my review. I think Ms. Sheets was working on it as well over her holidays here while she was gone last week. And we're getting all the information back to Justin so he can actually put it out there. The timeline is he wants to have it finished by the end of March, so have the information and the proposals come back to us before the end of March, so we can hopefully have by early April, or I think within a month. The timeline I think said within a month, by the end of April, to have it awarded or shortlisted to the actual qualified engineering firms. The other RFP that he's working on, which I think has higher priority, and what he's been focusing more of his energy on, was the request for proposals for dike design or DMAF design works, which due to certain timelines that kind of was pushed to more of a priority project. I hope I summarized this properly there, right?
Okay, so
senior planner.
Senior planner, we have, we're discussing currently references with one applicant.
So two weeks ago, Justin, our manager of Capital Works, sat here and says that the RFQ for engineering services would be out shortly, and that was 2 weeks ago. So now you're telling me it won't be out till the end of this month? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, so once Ms. Sheets and myself, and I think, I don't know if Mr. Witzke was involved with it as well to review the original contract. We will post it as soon as that is done, as soon as all the sections are checked over by at least 2 or 3 managers. Then we post it. So, however, the timeline for the RFP was more important than DMAP. I believe it's going to be out soon because he would like an answer from all the qualified firms by the end of March. So by the end of March, hopefully we have, this is closing up and we're awarding something by the end of April.
So the RFQ for engineering services will be posted
shortly.
That, 2 weeks ago I was told shortly, so I need a more timeline on what shortly means. Is it end of March then? Is that what you're telling me?
So, well, shortly, I'm hoping within the next week or 2. The concerns are always, there's things that come up on a daily basis. They had to work on a wastewater treatment plant issue last week with the new plant, so that was priority. The design being higher priority right now due to some timeline extensions for the DMAP. That took over priority. There's only so many hours in everybody's life right now.
Well, and again, speaking to the capacity issue, I think this kind of pressure at times on staff about the timing of things doesn't take into consideration the variables that are more important at this point to move forward.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is I didn't put the words in staff's mouth when they said shortly, so I'm just trying to get qualifications here.
It sounds like you might be trying to hang them on it at times. Engineer of record has been an issue for me since I walked in the door. We've been talking about it for over a year, and I'm trying to get a timeline on when we'll actually go out for request for quotation. So I will put down end of March, and hopefully we'll see it by then. We'll expect you to bring that up again.
You bet.
Mr. Mayor, I can say it's a 30-page or so document right now that we're, a 20 to 30-page document with a lot of legal clauses and whatnot. So we're trying to make sure just to do this once so we don't have to do it multiple times.
And I think that's been sufficient recognition of the kind of pressures that staff is under right now. Okay, Councillor, further? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the manager's reports. All those in favor? Carried. Bylaws, we have the 5-year financial plan. This is a recommendation to move this to March 23rd regular meeting. First 3 readings. Can I have the motion to get it on the floor? Councillor Crog. Discussion. Councillor Zelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the way this has been set up for us here, I'm assuming that passing the budget or the 5-year financial plan as presented includes the shuffling of funds in our reserve account. So if we give an approval of what's been presented here, we are approving to those change in the reserve accounts. Is that correct?
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The way it is right now, it's the move from reserves to satisfy capital accounts is the capital projects are in a separate appendix that's not part of bylaw. So in general terms, we're approving the amounts overall that go into reserves and out of reserves. there's also going to be a proposal to allocate some of the surplus from the electrical fund into the other fund, into the other reserves, the other capital reserves. But the way the bylaw is set up right now, an actual allocation into reserves could be done by resolution, and that would be the plan, to actually come up with a proposal once we know what the final numbers are. It should be close to knowing what the final numbers are for 2019, because those are the starting balances for 2020, and to know exactly what our surplus for 2019 is, and then make that proposal for council to do that.
Okay. And I see Councillor Moslin.
Yes, Your Worship. Just, I guess my question, maybe that you could refresh our memory on what is general. I'm looking up at that, suddenly we have this new, my guess is that this refers to the pooling of our reserves into a category called general. Am I correct in that?
Through the mayor, that actually refers to our general fund, and our general fund has the expenditures for roads, parks, administration, etc. So that refers to that specific fund. And then we have, because we account for the electrical, the water utility, and the sewer utility all separately, but the general fund is what's funded by taxation, and it covers what I just mentioned: administration, roads, parks.
Yeah. Councillor Zielinski.
So to talk a bit about our reserves, the reserve accounts were altered here within the last year and a half, 2 years. Our asset management plan says that if there is a surplus in a department, let's talk electrical, that surplus is then carried over into the capital account for that function. It's been my belief, and I think a lot of other people's belief, that utilities should be self-sufficient. As far as a municipal utility is not there to make money. If it's there to make money, then the question is it just a hidden tax? So I have no problem that as a function, as a policy, that we say that as a whole, our utilities run on a break-even cost basis, whereas we can use the electrical surplus for water and sewer. I have no problem with that. That way our utilities can function by themselves. It's a user-based system, and that carries on. When we're using, I'm going to say, a hidden tax from the electrical department, an extra $1 million to fund the roads and other things that property taxes are used for, I think that's the slippery slope I don't care for. And I think we should be able to still function within those parameters as far as utilities run on a cost-even basis, and everything else is coming from the property taxes. So I won't be voting in favor of this, and that's regardless of the 4% increase in it and all that other stuff. But we set up these reserve funds for a reason, to segment those costs, and now it looks like we're just going back to the same old stuff that has had issues in the past. So thank you.
Thank you. So the rest of council, I'm not seeing that this precludes Councillor Zielinski from challenging this at another level, but I'm asking you to support it here today for the first 3 readings. Further comment on this before we vote? Mr. Hanson had his hand up.
Ray Hanson. I'm not sure where the councillor is coming from on that. My understanding as a citizen is that the city buys power from Fortis and resells it to us, and any difference in the cost and the sale goes to general revenue in the city.
Thank you. Councillor Moslin.
Your worship, just to clarify what's before us today is that the committee as a whole recommends to give...
First 3 reading.
No, to move it
recommends to council. We're recommending to pass this along to the March 23rd.
To the March 23rd.
Where the actual first readings will actually take place. And I think your point is quite that it's at that meeting and subsequent readings of the bylaw that Councillor Zelinski and others can bring forward their concerns.
Right. Okay, then I'm going to ask for the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so this is moving forward to make the decision on the first 3 readings. So you will have another kick at the can. And fees and charges amendments. This is the same situation, recommending to the meeting of March 23rd, first 3 readings. Comments, discussion. Can I have a motion? Councillor Crogg. Further? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bringing us down to the bottom and on any items covered today in the meeting, any comments or questions from the gallery? Seeing none?
Just for your information, at the very beginning of the meeting, when I went to do the live stream, Facebook threw an interface change at me, and I had to say, go back to the old way. And I ended up live streaming out of my personal Facebook page, which is why some people who wanted to watch it on Soapbox couldn't. So I'll fix that later on. But you weren't streaming to Soapbox, so you didn't have a ton of viewers, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir.
Frank Soroka, I'd like to know this a little bit more about this 4% increase up to 13.7%. Did you realize that for some of us who are already spending $500 a month to live in our own house because of the tax rate here, this is getting a little ridiculous. Our tax rate in Kelowna when we first came down here was a shitload less. And you're expecting people to come here, and once they find out what kind of taxes they're going to have to pay, you're not attracting anyone. You want to support seniors? I'm a senior. I'm so frustrated. We're probably going to have to sell when I finally do decide to quit work, because we won't be able to live here.
We came to talk about the tax issue also, and it kind of seems like maybe we're too late. We didn't know ahead of time, but I don't know if all of you read my email yesterday. I'm Kelly Fears. Again, like I said, this 4% increase, we have to sell our house and leave. Like, we moved here from Kelowna thinking moving to a small town would be a less cost of living. We knew we were going to make less money living here, which we do and have, and it's evident, and our cost of living is significantly higher than it was in Kelowna. And now it's going up another 4%. Again, we have a new house. We built a new house here, so our house is maybe on the higher value end of people in town. But, I mean, our next year's taxes are going to be $8,000. And we're just a regular average income earning family with a kid, and we moved here to settle down, quote unquote, Grand Forks, and we're going to leave. Like, we both have businesses, we're involved in the community, I did the farmers market, we wanted to make a life here, and we can't afford to stay. And that's the bottom line for us with the tax situation.
I'd like to add to that you're dealing with 54% of this community are seniors, and you're asking them to come up with even more money. And seniors, as a rule, tend to always go, no, I have to pay my bills because that's my responsibility. And that's what they would do. But you're pushing them into a couple of different scenarios. One, where you're probably going to end up with more seniors that are homeless. Two, you're going to end up cutting your own throats, because if seniors can't afford your extra tax increases, then they'll just waive their taxes, which means you will actually get less money to work with in the city than if you left them the way they are. The other thing to consider is that in 2017, you worked your mill rate all wrong, and you increased the taxes extremely high, put us way higher than we should be. We are a higher mill rate for the size of our city than just about anywhere else in BC. And yet you just want to raise them one more time. And then the year following, I believe it was Bev Tripp and Julia Butler voted not to increase the taxes because they recognized that it had been screwed up the previous year, but you raised them anyhow. So there's been this consistent raise that we keep seeing, but we're not getting anything for our money. In 2010, I spoke to the guy that was running your public works, he was a hail fellow, well met, I can't think of his name. He's gone now. And I was complaining about the fact that people were bypassing Donaldson from Central and whipping down our back alleyway at 60 kilometers an hour, and I wanted to barricade because coming out of our garage we were going to get T-boned. And he said, well, don't you worry, he says, we're going to be redoing this whole road in the next couple of years, and we're going to be putting in new water and new sewer, and the road's going to be all paved and beautiful, and then people will avoid those potholes and they won't be going down your alley. Well, it's 10 years later, the potholes are 10 times worse. Last week you had your public works guys come down and dump a bunch of gravel in them. Within 2 hours that was all spit out all over the road, and there was even bigger potholes. So I'm looking at the fact that you keep getting more money every year on taxes, but I haven't so far seen in the 15 years I've lived here anything happening within our infrastructure to fix anything. So I'd like to know what you're doing with all this money you're getting, and maybe what you should be looking to do is find the money within City Hall. We also know that a lot of the staff members in City Hall are paid at a higher rate of pay than most other communities for the same job.
And Mr. Johnson and Councilor Tulinski, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson.
Well, I don't work for the city. I pay taxes. Technically, I guess I'm partially retired. So I'm on a kind of a fixed income. And yeah, it's not easy. It's even harder on my partner. But a few little facts. 10 years ago, there was a public meeting that the city held, and it was about infrastructure and catching up. We had not been putting in the money to the infrastructure for a long time. And they said back then that we had a $36 million backlog to catch up on, and they had a 10-year plan, and it was going to be like $3.4 million per year we'd have to spend to catch up, just to catch up to where we should be, because we hadn't. Now, I don't think that that has happened. I don't think that we've done that $3.4 million per year, because city administrations come and go. But that was 10 years ago, and I don't think we still caught up. Now, last July, this whole idea of a tax burden being exorbitant in this town was brought before council, and so I looked into that. And I published a thing on my website, which I'm sure most people probably didn't see because they don't go there, they just go to Facebook. But BC government has in their stats page information on the tax burden for every city in BC from 2005 to 2019. And they break it down by, how much goes into what, and they have a representational value for a house in your community. And I downloaded all these spreadsheets because they're all in spreadsheet form, put them into a massive spreadsheet. I just wanted to see, is there a trend going on? And what I found was that it's simple. You look at 2005 to now, and it's a definite upward climb. And just after 2008, it tends to level out a bit. Why? Because there was a financial collapse worldwide. But then around 2015, 2016, it starts climbing again. And every single city in BC is like this. Every single city in BC is climbing. And this is happening to every town in BC, no matter where you go. Like, our property taxes went up almost 48% in 4 years. And we didn't do any improvements on our property. And this is our assessed value, courtesy of BC assessments. And that's before we go and add in things like mill rate and stuff like that. And then our town 2 years ago had a historic flood, and we're facing all kinds of things as a result of that. And yeah, we got a bunch of money from the province and the feds and stuff, but we still have a whole bunch of expenses of our own, and staff time and staff resources are being taxed to the hilt. Yes, they get paid a lot, but then again, it's a union shop. Do you want it to be a not union shop and pay them pittance and we don't get crap? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that it's necessarily the best thing to pay people good dollars, but I'm just saying that we have an awful lot on our plate as a city, and yeah, the money's got to come from somewhere. And if we don't catch up with our infrastructure costs, 10 years from now, some city council will be facing the music with the public, and the public will be saying, well, why? It's your fault. Well, it's not their fault. It's the previous council's fault. 10 years ago, they were having to lay this at the city's feet. Only 50 people from the whole community showed up for this massive thing, and only 50 people showed up. And, you know, this was not their fault, the council of the day's fault. It was the previous 20, 30 years of council being nice to the citizens of the city with tax rates and mill rates. And yeah, it ends up being a real tough pill to swallow to catch up. And we're not there. And I don't know if we'll ever be there, because councils come and councils go. And you people here, you give guidance as to what gets spent on what or not. That's it. That's my 2 cents.
And Councillor Zelinski impatiently waiting to make the last comments here.
Okay, so the big question to staff through the mayor is, if all the seniors in the community deferred payment of their taxes, what would that do to our function?
I'm sure that would not be good. Do you want to take a guess at that?
Well, no, I don't know if the province tops it up for us and they get the money when we collect, or what.
Yeah.
Mayor, it actually has no impact, because that's between the province. It's just a deferred payment of their taxes. We receive the full amount from the province.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn?
Oh,
sorry.
Okay, you're talking about infrastructure and all that. Those of us who just moved in this area a couple of years ago and built houses, we have our own well and we have our own sewer. We had to put all that in ourselves, and you expect a 4% for infrastructure that we had to put in ourselves.
Including your road.
Including my road, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of that issue with some, in particular, houses that are above standards in general for our community, that are beautiful houses. Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn?
What does that mean? Sorry if I don't mind. Would you just clarify that last statement you made regarding houses in their appearance?
Expensive, beautiful houses is certainly a burden, and I'm not lessening the impact on everyone, but I think it hits particularly hard at valuable properties that we've seen in our town that are at the top end of the value chain, which you mentioned earlier. Okay, it looks like we're going on since nobody motioned to adjourn. Councillor Zelinski.
I think just to clarify what I think you people are asking, or what they're saying, is regardless of the age of the house, we know we have to put a bunch of money into infrastructure to upgrade what we have, and that's usually a big chunk of our tax bill. The problem is they don't have any infrastructure that they should be paying on before or after, because there is no road, there is no water, there is no sewer to their place. And they're saying, but our costs keep going up to improve infrastructure.
And infrastructure is a major part of that, putting away money into
and
our
they're saying that we don't even have any city infrastructure to support.
I'm hearing a lot of pain with the tax burden in across sectors. Okay. I got 2 up here, but let's hear.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, so taxation isn't simply putting money away for infrastructure. There's a big chart right outside this door on some of the services that the city provides This is for the entire city. We provide cemetery services, we provide parks, landscaping, sidewalks, roads throughout the community. This is how the system works, but there's a really good list of 50 items or so hanging on the wall that does not even include the utilities.
No, I don't think that's not being recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you don't have a water or sewer main running past your home and the ability to hook up to it, you don't pay the flat rate fee for it. So that's one way you don't pay for it. And I just would like to point out that I believe Mr. Matuzzi said that the development cost charges on a single family home in Kelowna are $40,000. Ours are $4,000. So we haven't raised our development cost charges in close to 20 years. And so looking at it just from simply a tax aspect is maybe limiting, because there are a lot of other factors for development besides taxes that we have.
Right. Okay, thank you. And it looks like this is going to continue unless council decides not to. And let's hear from Nigel. Mr. James.
Good day again, Your Worship. Unfortunately, I had to leave earlier on. I've done some crunching of numbers, and I don't know if, unfortunately, the discussion earlier on went to beyond taxation of property. Did it go into the cost of water and electricity and things like that? Was that covered or not?
I think we're lumping that into the cost of living in this town right now.
Okay, I've done crunching of numbers. I've lived here for just over 10 years. The CPI over those 10 years has been about 2%. So the cumulative effect is maybe 3% overall that it's been increasing when you think over the years. So the 3% or 4% now that is being proposed and so on is, it's a bit higher than normal, a bit in line, but however, when you compare it with what electricity and sewer and garbage have been costing you, I haven't done the water side of life, but I expect that's about the same. Generally, in those 10 years, I'm trying to remember the figures, but basically 68%, 72% have been the average increases in electricity, garbage, and garbage is a bit cheaper, and sewer. So consequently, the property taxation is much lower than the living costs. So therefore, from that point of view, while it's going to be a big bill, you've been paying bigger bills over every 2 months for the last 10 years.
Thank you. Gloria, I think you had your hand up next.
4%
raise
every year. So you expect people to build poorer type homes?
So they have to pay less
So they have to pay less tax?
No, I don't.
Well, that's what you're saying.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I think the burden is proportionate, and I think people with bigger houses, more expensive houses get hit harder. You know, you look at Christina Lake, some of the cost of houses.
If you don't mind asking her question.
Yeah.
Do you want people to actually stay in this community? Do you want this community to be attractive to other communities?
Yeah. Yes, and we recognize we need a broad range of housing, from very small and affordable up to people who want to live in gated communities, who want to have a house in the community that's big and gorgeous.
Do you realize that the private sector is not getting raises?
In terms of how we value our staff and
the private sector. No, I mean, you're asking for a 4% raise on our taxes, but we're not getting any kind of raises. Matter of fact, I haven't had a raise in 10 years. But every year, people want more and more and more. That's where we're going with this. We're getting to the point where it's breaking point for the guys who are actually working outside of the public sector.
Councillor Student.
Yeah, I sort of said a similar thing last time the subject was brought up, but the cost of everything goes up. So whether it's this box of Kleenex, whether it's the materials for us to pave the road, whether it's the gas for all the vehicles to water the flower baskets, all that stuff, it all goes up. So let's say it's a really good year and we're able to, all our line items are exactly the same. We have the exact same employees, the exact same wage, exact same amount of fuel to do all that stuff, exact same amount of Kleenex boxes. We'd still have to do the 4% because all those things slowly go up over time.
Wait a second. As a public employee and a union member, did you get a raise?
No.
Last year, or the year before, or the year before?
No.
Okay.
Okay, now we have Councillor Crog, and then we'll come back to you here. Councillor Crog.
Oh, I was just gonna point out, when it comes to property values, I moved here, I bought my property, and I think I paid $42,000 for it. It's now closer to $300,000 in assessment. So obviously my taxes that I would have paid on the $40,000, I'm now paying taxes on the $300,000, right? So it's not, I'm not saying that that we're raising taxes just for the sake of raising taxes.
13.7%. Come on, 13.7%. When other communities aren't getting that, 9% in trail? Come on. What I'm upset about is the fact that you're not dealing with what you get. You just add another 4%. They won't. It doesn't matter to anybody.
So you've been waiting here.
Sorry, I understand that, the city needs money to operate. But the thing is, you have to understand, when you increase taxes, there's a burden on your residents. And you have to understand your residents. Is this town growing? What is the growth rate here? Can it actually support the amount that this city is continually asking for? Because there is a report out there that I provided in this email that shows that the cost of spending by municipalities is far exceeding the growth rate of their communities. And seems like a perfect example. This town, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's between 4,000 and 5,000 people. But to continue to try and squeeze a community that, I don't know what the actual growth rate, so excuse my ignorance, but it doesn't seem like it's in lockstep with the actual growth of this community. And to bring in new people and to expect them to pay these amounts, I think that if people knew coming into this community like we did, that the rates that we would have to pay here, we would have chosen a different community to live in.
Neil and Ann.
Yeah, just to finish, I started to ramble away there. Just looking at not only the cost of providing services, the way that we can cut the need for taxes is to cut services, right? So then it's what do we want? As pointed out, there's just a big list there. So what are we willing to accept? What we've been told is people like the level of service they're receiving today, right? And that's what's costing, right? And it may not be a service in my neighborhood, because I don't even have sidewalks, so there's no sidewalk plowing. But what are we willing to give up, right?
And sorry, just to answer you, I feel as though, I understand services are nice. We all enjoy services, but I mean, if you run your home the same way that this city is running all these additional services, whether it's going out for dinner or going out to the movies, when times are lean, do you think that those things are necessary? When there's obviously, if you're increasing the taxes, there's already a crisis. There's already a need for these funds, where instead there should be a focus on reducing spending, finding out what services are not essential or not being used. And I feel as though that's the way somebody runs a house fiscally. And the way that this city, I would ideally hope you guys are going to operate.
Ms. Palmer.
I was going to reply to Mr. Studley. Yes, Kleenex boxes go up. The cost of living goes up. Food goes up. But you're not considering that for a lot of seniors, nothing goes up, except all those things, and we still need to survive. You're looking at far more people utilizing the food bank because they can't afford to buy food. You're looking at the possibility that people will lose their homes and you will have more homeless. Maybe that's what you want, I don't know, because they can't afford their homes. These are all things that you have to consider in the grand scheme of things. And I have a relative who's planning on leaving Grand Forks, and he's planning on moving to Agassiz. And he tells me that the taxes are cheaper in Agassiz than they are here. He's been checking it out. So there's something wrong, basically, with everything we're doing here. And maybe it means that what you do is you go down Donaldson Road and take all the asphalt out and make it a gravel-packed road that you can easily grade the potholes out of. Maybe you have to look at a different way of doing business to make it work in this small town. But keeping on raising the taxes is not going to bring new people in. And if you want it to expand, it won't happen, or they're going to get here and realize they can't afford to be here and they're going to go somewhere else, and then you've lost that. And if they're supplying businesses to our community, you've lost even more.
Ms. Palmer. Ready for adjournment? Council? Motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn, Your Worship.
Thank you all very much. It's a tough decision, and you know, we are hearing you. Thank you.